You are Locked On Pistons Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And here we go. Welcome into a live Locked On Pistons Postcast. I am your host, Jake Rietma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Rietma, formerly with 97.1 The Ticket, the Detroit Pistons flagship radio station, now with Locked On Sports Detroit. Couldn't be more excited. And this one for the Detroit Pistons, oh, so close. It would have been an incredible effort and an incredible upset, especially with all the junk that Jaylen Brown was talking preseason on Celtics Media Day about a team like the Pistons. But none is the case. 124-118, the final in this one. The Boston Celtics get the win over the Pistons, who fall to 0-3 on the year. We're going to break it down. This team, the Detroit Pistons, did go toe-to-toe with the Boston Celtics, but it was the inability to execute down the stretch. And then we'll close it out with our studs and duds. That's what's on tap for you. As always, we thank you for making Locked On Pistons Postcast your post-game destination. What is the Locked On Pistons Postcast? It's real simple. If you're new around here, it's just a post-game show, and it's all a part of the Locked On Pistons Network, and of course the Locked On Network as well. And don't forget, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Pistons Daily Newsletter. It's your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all new free Locked On Pistons newsletter. And shout out to Koo and the Locked On Pistons Daily Show. What a tremendous job and a tremendous publication that is. Always enjoy tuning in. But for your post-game reaction show, I've got you covered here on the Locked On Sports Detroit. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. If you haven't, do us a favor, like the video as well. Share it with a friend. That helps us out a great deal, as well as we continue to grow Locked On Sports Detroit. Don't forget, we'll have a Locked On Wolverines postcast later tonight after the Michigan State game, and a Locked On Lions postcast tomorrow after the Lions game. Now, this episode of the Locked On Pistons postcast is brought to you and made possible by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Woo! Deep breath. All right. The housekeeping taken care of. The lights have been kept on. And now we can dive into the matchup. Want to get to your comments here in just a moment. But, man, you watched this game, and the Pistons were close. They were really close, and they had just a couple of tough stretches after a really disastrous start. I thought they were going to get boat raced out of LCA the way that game started. I mean, 17 first quarter points for Jayson Tatum, and he wasn't the only one. The entire Celtics team was having their way with this Detroit Pistons team, outscoring the Pistons 42-31 in that opening frame. And really, it looked like it was going to continue in that second quarter, but a nice little finish to the second quarter for the Pistons. And they kept talking about getting it under double digits. Celtics led by as many as 23 in that first half, got it down to 11 at the halftime break. And in that third quarter, that's where the Pistons shine. And that's the type of basketball when they're playing at that level. The defense is, complementary basketball, helping out the offense. They're getting stops. That's what this Pistons team can be. They were tough. They, at one point in the third quarter, let me make sure I have this right, an 18-3 third quarter run. I thought Fontecchio was his best game of the season by far. He had a couple of big three-pointers, and Jalen Duren with a couple of big dunks. And even in the midst of that third quarter, you had the Tobias Harris flagrant foul on the offensive end that kind of halted the run, and the Pistons were within 4 at that point. I thought, oh boy, if the Pistons aren't able to continue this momentum, you'll look at that flagrant offensive foul. But to the Pistons' credit, they continued to keep pushing it and keep pouring it on, and eventually found themselves in a favorable position in that fourth quarter. So a big third quarter for the Pistons where they outscore the Celtics by 10, 31-21, which speaks to the defense. Now, jump ahead to the fourth quarter, and that's where things felt like, okay, you got the crowd getting into it, and with Johnny Kane on the call instead of George Blaha, with him at the Michigan State game, obviously, and Greg Kessler, and how much I enjoyed the broadcast. You could feel the moment this crowd started to get into it. You could feel the energy at LCA, but as it went down the stretch, the Pistons had that 110-106 lead. This is where they didn't put the nail in the coffin. They didn't go for the jugular. They didn't put this game on ice, however you want to phrase it, because Pistons have come all the way back to go up 4, and you have a couple of empty possessions. You got Tim Hardaway Jr. missing a step-back three-pointer. Is that the guy you want shooting? You've got Derek White with a couple of blocks, one of them on Jaden Ivey. The next possession, it's a Jaden Ivey missed three-pointer that wasn't necessarily a step-back variety, but it wasn't a good open look. And even in that stretch, you had Jayson Tatum getting a technical foul, but Cade misses the free throw. And that, again, was another opportunity where momentum's getting away from the Boston Celtics into the hands of the Detroit Pistons. You're up 4. Free throw would have made it 5, but they're unable to do so. The Pistons did get a bucket to go up 6, but from then on, you got to give Holiday some credit for the Boston Celtics, because just like the other night with Halliburton, Holiday was completely silent until he made a few three-pointers down the stretch, 2 of them. In fact, he was just 2 for 3 from the long line on the night. But Drew Holiday made some really important buckets. That was part of an 8-0 run for the Celtics when they were down 110-106. So they regain the lead, 114-110. And Derek White, again, he had a couple of huge blocks at the rim that helped this Boston Celtics team defensively. And then you get Jayson Tatum quieting the crowd with that jump shot where he gets the lucky roll. And for whatever reason, Jayson Tatum was getting member bounces at the LCA. We gotta figure out how to do something about that. But the Celtics go up 118-114. And, credit to the Pistons. Beasley gets that huge three-pointer, and they execute well, but too little too late. That made it 118-117. Pistons do get the ball back after they foul, and the 2 free throws put the Celtics up 120-117. But this is basketball 101, and I don't understand why this isn't always a standard protocol, if you will, but following up by 3 to prevent that game-tying three-pointer, and that's exactly what the Celtics did. So the Pistons have to shoot the 2 free throws. Cade goes 1 of 2, which, again, he didn't shoot a lot of free throws, but he missed 2. The 2 free throws that he missed were both in a big spot. And you look at the final line for Cade Cunningham, 21 points. He was +3 and 10 assists. So 21 and 10, you're not going to get mad at that. But from the free throw line, just 1 of 3, and the 2 misses were both in a big spot. Jaden Ivey probably had his best game of the season. I know it's only been 3 games, but 26 points for him. He led the Pistons in that category, 10 of 18 from the floor. From the long line, I mentioned Fontecchio. That was definitely his best game. 3 big triples he hit. He was 3 of 5 from deep, 11 points, and 15 points for Jalen Duren. I thought Jalen Duren played some of his best basketball tonight, and they talked about how he's beefed up and in, better, not even better shape, but just a more physical specimen in the way that he's beefed up. I think you saw that tonight. And so as it all plays out, you got the Pistons losing to the Boston Celtics 124-118 down the stretch. The Celtics really exposed the Pistons in some areas, and it was a game that the Pistons had a 4-point lead late in this fourth quarter, but some empty possessions and the Celtics capitalizing, which is why they're the world champs. And I mentioned it in the opening, this first segment, toe-to-toe with the NBA's best. But you want more, right? And selfishly, that's how I feel. And I know each and every Pistons fan that's just been clamoring for this team to be better and better. And you're just so hungry for it. A lot like what we saw with the Tigers. We were just so hungry for a team to show that they can be a winner. Tonight, there is no moral victories. I'm not going to go down that path. But tonight was especially with the way this game got started, it showed a little bit of character for this Pistons team, but you definitely want to see more, and you want to see it start to translate into victories. I mean, that's the name of the game. There's no other way to put it. That is the name of the game. If you're not winning, what is the point? Am I right? So that being said, Pistons fall to the Boston Celtics final score in this one, 124-118. And it was the second night of a back-to-back. I know that sometimes gets thrown out after the Pistons lost 113-101 to the Cavaliers last night, plus the travel. I know it's only Cleveland, but hey, second night of a back-to-back, and this Pistons team went toe-to-toe with the defending champions. But we want winners. I want winners, right? Like the Mike Singletary. But anyways, appreciate everybody tuning in to the live Locked On Pistons postcast on a busy Saturday evening in the Motor City. We'll take your comments next and continue to break this one down. We'll talk about some of those final possessions in more detail when we come back on this live Locked On Pistons postcast. Hey, this episode of the Locked On Pistons postcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. That's right. Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And oh, by the way, now you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action, and you gotta join the community that has more than 8 million active users. How about that? When you sign up today, you'll get $50 instantly. When you play just $5, you don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. And don't forget about the weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts. I'm talking about Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So how about that? And don't forget Prize Picks. That's right, available in 30 plus states. And oh yeah, Prize Picks puts its members first. So all the withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And when your picks hit, you can get that money in as quick as 15 minutes. You gotta love it. All right, so don't wait. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDON-NBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On NBA. And don't forget to download the app today. Use code LOCKEDON-NBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's all about the Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. It's a live Locked On Pistons postcast. Your comments are next because we welcome one. We welcome all on this wonderful Locked On Pistons postcast on a Saturday night after a difficult loss. I was trying to think of the right word. Tough loss. You took it on the chin, 124-118, but you were in it every step of the way. But we don't believe in moral victories around here. And I think this comment says it perfectly right away. Man seated, tough loss. 116-112 lead with a few minutes to play, outscored 12-2 to come up short 124-118. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about down the stretch, because you get the world champs on the ropes like the Pistons had. You got to find a way to finish. And that's what was so difficult about tonight, is it was there for the taking, and you execute down the stretch in a few more possessions, and we're talking about a joyous upset win. And I mentioned the comments that Jaylen Brown had at Celtics Media Day this year, where they're talking about, when we play bad teams like the Pistons, we're going to put in our bench guys so that they can go off and give them the confidence. I mean, that's just, and Special K was, I think, the most upset about it, and rightfully so. I mean, this is a guy that's played in the league and understands what it takes to be a consummate professional, and it was not really a professional comment from Jaylen Brown talking about the state of this Pistons team. But the only way to change that is to go out and win games. And yes, you take them down to the wire, but you don't win the game. And so it would have felt even better to get that the satisfaction of winning that game. All right, Daniel Barry Sports Highlights is up next. He says, yo, my man Demetrius McNeil getting in on the action. Big play of the game when Cade got his shot blocked. Yeah, I mentioned that block from Derek White. Derek White just does so many little things right. And I think that's why he was on the U.S. Olympic team, because he can just impact the game in so many different ways. Next one, we've got Mega Hustle 313RD or 313. Shout out to him. Appreciate your comment here on a live Locked On Pistons postcast. Tobias Harris cost the Pistons the game. Yeah, what I wrote down about Tobias is he had that one corner three look. I don't remember exactly what the score was at this time, but it was in that midst of a where the Pistons had a lead, 110-106, and a couple of empty possessions, and you get the miss three-pointer. Yeah, Harris misses the three that would have extended the lead, and it was in between Drew Holiday's threes. So Drew Holiday hits the three to cut the lead down to 3. Harris misses a 3. That would have put them back up 6 and essentially would have been an answer. And I don't want to say his one missed shot cost this team the game, but I'll hear Mega Hustle's comment on that. Is I do think if Tobias Harris executes a little bit better and plays a little bit better, we have a different conversation here. You look at Tobias Harris's run, he was minus 12. And I know plus and minus isn't everything, but just 8 points and 11 rebounds. Okay, 9 defensive rebounds, 4 for 4 from the line, but nothing of 5 from three-point land. So he did not knock down a triple despite taking 3 threes, just 2 of 11 from the floor. So Mr. Mega Hustle, you certainly have a point that I'm not going to begrudge. I'm not going to argue that point, because I think there's a lot to be said about Tobias Harris's inability to execute or inability to really put forth an effort, a winning effort in this game was certainly a huge difference. Dana Jones, I have a question for Locked On Pistons postcast in chat. Why Pistons lost 3 games in a row? It's a great question, and I wish I had the answer. The Pistons have lost 3 games in a row, tough schedule, 1. And you look at the second game of a back-to-back here, and again, there's no such thing as a moral victory, but to be down 23 in the first half and come back and have a 4-point lead in the fourth, I think that speaks to the resiliency of this team. But at the same time, you got to find a way for that to correlate into victories. Now, that being said, I think there's still a lot of growing pains that this team will continue to feel. It feels like a different team, just in terms they're not getting laughed out of the gym like they were a year ago, and it doesn't happen overnight. So yeah, there's an element of patience there. But 115-109 loss to the Indiana Pacers, the Eastern Conference, who went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. You're going toe-to-toe with the Boston Celtics, the defending world champions, 124-118. Cleveland, a playoff team from a year ago that won a playoff series. And now Monday's game, you take on the Miami Heat, followed by the 76ers. The Heat are on the road, both games on the road. So yeah, it's a tough schedule to begin the season. There is no doubt about it. However, you don't get bonus points when it's a tough schedule to begin. That's just my 2 cents worth less than that. But the multitude of factors contributing to the Pistons 0-3 start. All right, we'll tie a bow on this one with the studs and duds portion of the program. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. We've got one more segment to go on a live Locked On Pistons postcast here on Locked On Sports Detroit. This episode of the Locked On Pistons postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. That's right, FanDuel. Don't wait. Get in on the action right now. America's #1 sportsbook. And listen up, it's October, so I know there's a lot of NFL fans tuning in. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. It's all on the same page where you place your bets. FanDuel.com, live odds, live sportsbook, and you know it's legal in Michigan to get in on the action. You gotta love that. Get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It all happens at FanDuel.com. So what the heck are you waiting for? Head that way. Don't wait. Do it now, because like I mentioned, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It all happens at FanDuel.com. Live odds available at FanDuel as well. Visit FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Studs and duds portion of the program. And I hate to give all the credit to the opposition. This is not the Locked On Celtics postcast, but there's a couple of studs for the Boston Celtics that will get out of the way. Jayson Tatum led all scorers with 37, but 17 of those in the first quarter. He was a little bit slowed down in the middle of this game, but made the buckets when it mattered most. You got to give him a lot of credit. And then Derek White, just the 17 points, but defensively, he was really good tonight. For the Pistons, a couple of studs. I mentioned Jaden Ivey, 26 points, one of his better nights, but minus 15 from the overall in his plus minus. And I know that doesn't say everything, but the 6 assists for Jaden Ivey, 10 of 18 from the floor, 2 of 5 from deep. Duds, and we can all know where I'm going with this one, but Tobias Harris, a dud tonight, and a couple of commenters on the live Locked On Pistons postcast pointing that out, but he was not good tonight. Don't love that for Tobias Harris. Just 8 points, minus 12, 6 fouls, fouled out of the game. Did have 11 rebounds, but 0 for 5 from three-point land and just 2 for 11 from the field. If this Pistons team is going to have success, he's got to be an integral part of that. And tonight, he wasn't. There is no other way to put it. He was not good tonight, and this Pistons team suffered because of it. And when that happens, listen, we all know how important it is to play complementary football, complementary basketball as well. I'm so used to saying that. And the Pistons didn't have it tonight when it mattered the most. They had it at times. They had it when they were making a run and up by 4 in the fourth quarter and the way they played in that third quarter, but they couldn't sustain that level of execution and find the way to carry that to the very end. And that's been the conversation with this team, the inability to close out games, the inability to make the plays when the lights are the brightest, when it matters the most. So another disappointing defeat, and the Pistons will have a day to think about it before the season continues. Up next for the Detroit Pistons, they will hit the road to take on the Miami Heat. That's a Monday, 7:30 tip. Make sure you join me postcast for a live Locked On Pistons postcast. 76ers middle of the week on Wednesday, 7 o'clock tip. And the New York Knicks on Friday. That one's back at the LCA, 7 o'clock tip as well, Friday, November 1st. That's what we've got on tap for the upcoming Pistons postcast. You know about the Locked On Wolverines postcast that's coming up just in a little bit. They're playing Michigan State right now. And don't forget about our Locked On Lions postcast that comes your way following the conclusion of Lions Titans tomorrow. So busy day on the channel, busy weekend on the channel. We appreciate you subscribing at Locked On Sports Detroit. Shout out to Koo on Locked On Pistons on the daily. Make sure you check him out each and every day. And hey, we've got you covered on the Locked On Sports Network, free and available wherever you get your podcast, and of course on YouTube as well. And don't forget about, like I mentioned at the open, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. That's right. We're introducing the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Pistons newsletter. Pistons fall to the Boston Celtics 124-118. Jayson Tatum with 37, Jaden Ivey with 26 for the Detroit Pistons. As a team, it was the Boston Celtics who shot so well from three-point land. They made 16 three-pointers in the beginning portion of this game, ultimately leading to 22 three-pointers, 22 of 48. They took 48 threes tonight. Pistons 14 of 39 from deep. Pistons actually shot a better percentage from the floor, 48.9 compared to Boston's 42. But hey, the big difference, Pistons commit 15 turnovers. That's not a recipe for success. Pistons were much better in the paint, 56 points in the paint compared to Boston's 28. But again, the long line, a big difference in this one. 22 made threes for Boston compared to 14 made three-pointers for the Pistons. That'll do it for me on the Locked On Pistons postcast. My name is Jake Riepma. Appreciate anyone that wants to drop a follow on X, on Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I'll follow right back as we continue to grow our community here on the Locked On Pistons postcast. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and join us for a Locked On Wolverines postcast in just a little bit, all on Locked On Sports Detroit. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you next time.